We're preparing to get started. Allow your body to begin to relax into the ground or wherever you're settled. Notice how taking a good deep breath gives your body a chance for the muscles to relax even deeper, especially with that good exhale. It's like any cares that have been boiling up in our body through the day, all those cares have a chance to exit, at least for this hour that we have together. Here is a time to be present with our body, present with our breath. And so first thing to help us really start to come even more into this body, this beautiful system we have, let's take our hands right above us and start to gently rub the hands together, not to create heat and friction, but just to gently feel all those little tiny nerves in our hands get a chance to be activated ever so softly. When that feels good, complete, you can choose maybe the hands drop to the eyes, to the heart, or to the belly. Wherever they end up, send some good soft breaths into that area. With the eyes closed and the soft breathing, imagine that within we've just uncovered a soft little seed. A seed that's been with us since the day that we were born. And that seed represents some of those immediate concepts that we needed to develop the very first day of our life. Concepts like love, and trust, and hope. And come back to the softness of that seed and how on that first day of our life, those were pure. A pure hope, a pure trust, a pure love, because there is nothing blocking it. And see in your mind's eye how as you gained more experience in life, you started to develop a hard shell around that soft. That hard shell started to become like conditions around those concepts. Conditions to who you could love and who you could trust and what you could hope for. So our hope and our goal in our class today is to help soften that seed, the hard shell, soften some of those conditions away. So even if it's just a little crack, we can start to get glimpses of returning back to that soft seed. So take a deep breath into that idea of softening. And feel that exhale help release any resistance we've had against that initial idea of trusting and loving and hoping. But from here, we softly begin our class. We start to take the knees into our chest. And as the knees are in, perhaps we take little soft motions, kind of like we did with the hands earlier. Maybe a gentle rub across the shins, the inner knees, just to tell your legs, I feel you, I'm here for you. And maybe it feels good and right to start rocking the knees very softly left and right, so that the back of the body, all those muscles and the hips, get a chance to have that gentle sensation, just like we did with our hands to begin. Fill all these areas, taking a quality of softness. Not needing to be quite so tense in life. So from here, for a little brief moment, we release the feet so that we can grab onto our strap, and we create a loop with our strap. So open the strap all the way up and feed the very end of the strap through both metal pieces and then back out the last one. That should create a loop that stays. So whenever you've got your loop in place, and if anybody got a short strap and you need to trade me, I'm perfectly fine with that. But whenever you have it in place, the idea is while the right foot goes into one end of the strap, make sure the metal doesn't go right behind the head, but we end up with the back of the head in the other end of the strap. So it's like a big hammock where we're stretching neck and hamstring all together. So make sure it's on the right part of the head where it doesn't make the head crank back, but it also doesn't slip off the top of the head. When you start to get into the shape, you'll notice right away if it's way too easy, you just don't feel hardly any sensation at all. So if that's the case, you're welcome to grab the strap and start cranking. You're at a perfect distance already. You feel that hamstring stretch really tightly. That's where we want to be. It's right at that edge where you feel sensation. Maybe it's a little intense at first, but that's the perfect place to start softening from. So just start off with letting the breath flow. Notice how after a couple of really good slow breaths, suddenly it's not as intense as it was at the beginning. So if and when you start to get to that point, perhaps the next thing that you do is slowly help the leg straighten out just a little bit more. Just because it naturally tends to take a bent knee shape to protect itself when it's tight. So if that feels like a good cue, you can take it, not leave it. We'll spend just another 3 good slow breaths on this right leg. Off to this next exhale, we'll begin to switch. Grab onto each side to help support the neck through the transition. Left foot can step in. Right foot starts to release out. This is that point where we'll start to soften through left. So just start off with easy breath. Notice how the intensity starts to change over time. That which was immediately really intense starts to become a little bit less so with this time, with this patience, with this effort. See if you can scan through the system, finding some of those tight spots that are trying to resist it. Maybe it's almost like the hip bone itself, kind of trying to lift its way out of the socket to lessen the intensity. So how much can we just let that bone sink into its socket? And how much can we soften the muscles that are trying to resist and be tight? In this spot, we'll take that last 3 breaths. Whenever your third exhale finishes, release the strap. We can place it off to the side. We'll begin to place the bolster off to our right hip. We slide the left leg long on the earth. And then hands start to hug around the right knee as that knee gets pulled into the chest. So give it a couple of breaths for your body to soften into this direction. That might mean we have to have a contrasting, opposing thing going on. So we might have to kind of tighten and contract through that left leg, ground it down, so that as we pull this right knee into the chest, we feel this greater softening of that hip joint. So just another breath or 2 right here. As the right hand takes over the right knee, let this knee start to travel open wide. Feel how that bolster is there to support the weight of the hip, so it won't open too far or off to a weird angle. So just leave that right hand on that knee to help weigh it open. We're here for just a couple more breaths with that opening side of the inner thigh stretch. And lifting that right knee back up, the left hand takes over the knee. We won't invite the knee super far yet. We'll take it to about a half twist, going across the body to the left, only to about a 45-degree angle. This should give us a chance to start feeling the gentle, tender opening of the outer hip, the outer thigh, IT band. So give it a couple of breaths right there. And if this is opening hip and leg in a really good way, this is the place where we'll stay. If you want to twist your spine a little bit more, you can continue to let the knee twist open to the left, with or without the bolster. If you'd like to switch bolster over now, you can. Let that knee twist right onto it. Take another deep breath into the belly. Feel that soft, soft exhale. And then almost like you're melting, let that hip return back open, right hip to ground. Slide the right leg to earth. If you didn't switch bolster yet, go ahead and take it to left. Left knee will start to come into the chest. Leave the right leg slightly grounded on the earth as we pull the knee just a little bit closer to left shoulder. Left hand starts to invite the leg open to left. We can have that gentle bolster support unless you prefer not. And lifting the knee back up. Start to head it to that halfway twist, the 45-degree angle. That's where we pause for a little while, trying to get the hip and IT band to soften. Remember how important a good slow breaths are to that softening process. At this point, if you wanted to increase the twist, you're welcome to, with or without the bolster. Here, take another good breath. Let it flow in. Let it soften out. As we return our body back toward a little mini shavasana, we lay open and prone on the ground. And we feel already how our body is a little bit more receptive to release. Releasing some of the tightness. Releasing some of the hardness. Just enjoy another breath passing through the body. And we'll begin to make our way up toward a seated position. So you can come up how you wish. Some people come directly up. Some people roll to a soft fetal position. And eventually press the way up. So you choose. Once we're seated, the next pose can be done with hips on the ground, or if hips and hamstrings tend to be really tight, you could also sit on the bolster. So that's the second option. But the idea here first and foremost is hugging around the thighs. So the idea of that hug is to set up the torso right up to the tops of the thighs. We're trying to keep that connection as we start to walk one heel forward and then the second heel. Little baby steps until you find your end pose. The end point is when the torso starts to separate right away from the thighs. So at that end, whether it's pretty much already there or whether it's almost where we're flat, that helps to maximize this balance between low back and hamstrings working together for the stretch. I personally love to keep the head dropped down, so that way the back of the neck also gets that good stretch just by the weight of the head dropping down. So we'll be here for a little while, helping hamstrings, helping low back. To send the breath to the spots that feel tight here. Planting the hands, soften the spine back up. The left leg will continue to slide longer. Right foot slides into plant. We'll take a spinal twist from there. So left hand comes to hold onto the knee. Right hand comes to the space behind us. And think of stacking the spine up before we rotate it. Just a breath or two here. Help to waken up and soften that spine. And starting to return forward, this right thigh falls open down to the ground. We'll continue to soften in toward a forward fold over that left leg. So you've got some options. You could take bolster and use that bolster support to just lean onto. You could also use the strap with or without the bolster. Strap option would be looping it around the foot and walking our hands closer and closer to it. So whatever use of props feels useful for that left leg, go ahead and utilize it, grab onto it. Then think of that idea of softening into it. There's areas that you could point to with your finger. Right here is the tight spot. See if you can imagine sending breath directly to that spot. With that fresh breath, that fresh oxygen, imagine the muscle fibers are more receptive to stretching. The spine rises up. That right leg, the one that's bent and tucked in, we're going to cradle it out so we can use hands or we could slip closer to elbows. We'll rock that hip out a couple of times, feeling how that can help us ease some of the tightness across the hip. When that starts to feel pretty good, that left heel will slide into plant so that this right ankle can release onto the thigh. From here, you've got a choice. could just plant the hands back. That's a really good right hip opener. You could push the right hand into the right knee for greater intensity. Sliding left foot in makes it even steeper. A full hug around is the deepest. So choose what will feel good. Sitting on bolster is another option to make it softer too, if it's really, really, really intense today. Take one more good inhale. Nice exhale. Then we'll begin to switch sides. So this right leg starts to slide all the way along on the earth. This left knee is already placed in for the twist. So right hand hooks around it, left hand is behind us. Spiral the spine, stacking it up, and then twisting around. Easy return forward. Left thigh falls open. This is the hamstring moment. So maybe slide in the bolster or maybe use the strap. Try to allow muscles to soften for 2 more breaths in this beautiful shape. On that 3rd breath, we gently rise out. This is where we cradle left leg. Give the hip a couple of good rocks. And that feels satisfying. Slide the right foot in so we can drop the ankle on the thigh. Same options, maybe we're leaning back, maybe we're pushing the knee open, sliding the foot in, giving it a hug. It's all up to you. Whatever helps you feel good, opening, softening sensations in that hip. So as we begin to release out of this, I'd like us to start heading toward a kneeling position. We'll take just a couple of cat-cows to help our spine kind of soften back into mobility. So a couple of easy rounds. No need to rush, just move with the breath. Let the spine round up to side. Soften the belly down. One more good round to each direction. And we'll take a couple of breaths in a toe stretch. So we're trying to get all 10 toes to tuck under. From here, depending on our feet, we'll start to head some of our weight back. If this is already pretty intense, just stay leaning forward like this. If it feels like the feet can handle a little bit more, taking the weight more upright makes it more intense on the fascia of the feet. So choose a good spot where you think you can maintain it. That's all 10 toes trying to tuck under. And if it starts to get more intense than you wish, just start to sink your weight back forward. Nothing wrong with that at all. So we'll try to take about 5 slow breaths at whatever angle feels good. Just let it flow through your body and soften out. Two more cycles. After that last cycle, our weight comes forward. Start to bring movement back to the toes, little circles. Sometimes it's nice to gently count the tops of the feet. Good. This is where we'll grab our blanket. We're going to roll our blanket up into a very tight ball. I like it to be a slightly bigger circumference, so I'm going to take it on this shorter edge and then roll it as tightly as I can, so that way it ends up sticking up just a little bit higher. Greater circumference is going to make it a little bit more intense, so you can always obviously realize, okay, if I want it to be longer, then I'll make it less intense. So whatever spot you're going to go into, the idea here is easing like a deep massage into 3 different points of our calves. So first is the easiest. Kind of put it toward the Achilles tendon, kind of at the start of the calf, that area. Place the roll right there, and then begin to sit some weight back onto that roll. It's the same as before, where if you need to place your hands forward, that makes it less intense. The whole body weight upright pushes the blanket directly into that area. So it's kind of like it's trying to separate some of those muscle fibers. There's 2 big muscles that make up the calves. So it's like we're trying to allow them to not get stuck together, to allow them to slide more freely, loosen up a little bit. So we'll take just a couple more breaths at this spot, then we'll switch the spot on our calf. Okay, so starting to lean forward. Scoot it up another inch or so. So it's now pretty much over the body or the biggest bulge of the calf. Once you got it there, start to sit your weight back. For me, that definitely increases the intensity. So again, leaning a little bit forward helps to soothe some of that. Less weight directly on it. Give it just a couple more breaths. we'll start to take it to one last spot, scooting in as close to the knee area, that bend as you can. Scooting it in, sit back one more time. For me, this one's the most intense of them all. So again, if you need to just lean forward a little bit, that eases some of that intensity. Two more breaths. That second breath, ease out. So now with that intensity in the calves, we're gonna really wanna stretch them out. So heading into the stretch, we'll use this roll again. If it seemed to flatten out, kind of take a moment to re-roll. This will be set up with roll toward the top of the mat, and then the two blocks right in front of the roll. So when you've got that set up, we're gonna come to a standing place. The heels are behind the roll, the toes are elevated by the roll. So once you've got yourself set up, you start to lean forward, seeing if the fingers can land on the blocks. If that's a little too far, stack your blocks. That'll be a good place to work with. If blocks are easy, you could always change the height of the blocks if you want more, going to a smaller height, or just stay exactly as you are. Breathe into those calves, creating space where we just did that deep compression. So now free out the right foot and slide it backwards about a foot. The blocks can either be in front, beside, or behind the blanket, depending on where the best balance is. From this spot, it shifts us into a pyramid pose with the toes slightly elevated. So a calf stretch in that pyramid pose. That means hamstring and calf are stretching on the left leg. So ease a couple of slow, deep breaths through this spot. We'll start to switch legs. So ball of right foot returns. Left foot slides back about a foot. Start to ease into that shape. Good. So take just a couple more breaths with both feet elevated, both feet in the calf stretch. Just let those 3 soft breaths flow through your body. Stepping slightly behind that blanket. You can either grab a block or grab the bolster, and we'll take it into yogic squat. So sitting down onto block or bolster, the feet are about as wide as the mat. You come down to sit on it. Elbows help to push the knees open. This hand slides down. It helps those hips. So the spine lengthen just a little bit, but then give the neck permission to relieve some tightness. So this is half circles if that feels best, or other particular directions if that feels better. And those last 3 breaths in this spot. For all 3 will start to soften out, but you can still watch, just kind of holding the shape while I explain 2 options for the next pose. So these options are dependent on how your knees feel more than anything else. Option 1 is going to be the one if your knees are pretty tight. That would be taking block right under your hips, the feet pointed back, and then just bringing the other block behind, so that way you can lean back enough that your quads are starting to speak to you. This is the easier option. If your quads are pretty good, they want to go a little bit more. What you'll do is set up a little ramp with the blocks. So one's at the tall height. You've got about a foot or so of separation. The other's at the small height. And you've got the bolster right up on a little ramp. From here, you would create the same position with the feet, except for now we're sitting down without that aid. And then we're starting to head all the way back slowly onto the ramp so that the head is supported, the quads are stretching, and we're laying back. So you've got all sorts of options. If you need an intermediate, you can almost do the ramp. You still have that roll that you can sit on, and then head back that way. So you've got some intermediate options. But just listen to your knees more than anything else to help you know which option you should try. Don't feel any pressure to push the knees any further than they want. But the knees already get enough pressure by walking us around all day long. So good. So with or without that additional supportive blanket, start to head back. If you're here and it's like almost comfortable, the knee is going just a little bit wider will also make it easier. So find a spot. If you get to one spot and you're like, nope, this is not going to work, bump it down to an easier spot. Just keep on playing until you find that spot where you can comfortably maintain for a couple of minutes. Wherever we're at, let's take about 5 more good deep breaths. Eventually heading up and out, get the hands underneath us, press forward, shift to the legs being out in front of you. When you're there, take a few windshield wipers, knees falling to the left, knees falling to the right. Beautiful. I'd like to offer us one last forward fold for each side before we completely wrap up. So similar to before, tuck the left foot in, the right leg extends out long. This time, what we're going to try to do is combine the calf stretch with the forward fold. So kind of like when we were standing. So take the strap around the ball of that right foot. And the first big action we're trying to do is pull the ball of the foot closer toward the torso. So that might be the selfing spot right there, and that's perfectly fine. If you're here and you want more, try to straighten the spine up. Any degree of leaning forward will begin to deepen the intensity. That might mean walking the hands down the strap to continue pulling that deeply. That might mean if you easily reach your foot, the hand pulls instead of the strap. That's always an option. Take one more breath for this leg. The exhale, give the toes a couple of easy circles. Just feel that whole leg so alive. Got one last side, left leg is out. Hook that strap. Pull the ball of the foot in, straighten the spine up. Tilt forward even just a little bit. Give it a couple of good breaths for this half. Or inhale, exhale, release, rise up. Here we start to head toward our Shavasana. So you've got options. If you want the ramp for your Shavasana, you're absolutely welcome to just lay back onto it. The legs can be any position that feels good. Long legs, toddler pose legs. Another option that some people might like is taking that bolster under the knees so that the knees are a little bit propped up as you're laying back. So keep on playing, keep on exploring. We've got all sorts of props to use. Set yourself up in a way that just feels good, whatever that looks like. And take your time, there's no rush. And ultimately, no matter what shape we take, we return to that idea of softening Softening especially that hard seed, the hard shell around the seed that we've put upon it through all of our life experiences. And sometimes when we start to crack that hard shell, crack those programs that led to us feeling like we needed to protect that soft seed, sometimes there's amounts of sorrow there. Sorrow in releasing some of those patterns, because the sorrow is what built the patterns in the first place. So if that's your experience and you feel sorrow, my recommendation, try to just breathe through the sorrow. See if that energy is willing to transform yet. And if that's not the experience, sorrow, perhaps it's something else, or maybe even if it's just a joyful experience, breathe and soften into that as well. See how that energy is willing to maybe expand. So just long, slow, easy breaths to lead us through the next couple of minutes. Here we're going to begin to deepen the inhales. Deepen the exhales. Introduce little movements back to fingers and toes. Ankles and wrists. Stretching it out like we're waking up first in the morning. Taking an easy fetal position off to one side if that feels nice for where we're at in our Shavasana. Just enjoy another 2 or 3 breaths until you feel ready to come up to a comfortable seated place sooner or later. Whenever we're here, we'll join hands together in front of the heart. Closing the eyes, tune back into that seed. And see if that hard shell was willing to soften or open, even just a little bit. Notice how it is to start touching upon those really soft ideas of trust without conditions, love without conditions, hope without conditions. So with these softer ideas to help lead us on to our next few beautiful days, let's wrap up the time that we shared together with the sound of Om. Deep inhale now. May we be filled with light, happiness, and peace. Namaste.